so special.
These people over here on the public, these are your judges, police officers, firemen, clerks, anybody like that who is sworn to take an oath, anybody who is an employee of the government, anyone who's taking oath of all, some type of oath where they swear, I swear to uphold the Constitution, so help me God, and they're bonded.
Thank you.
These people over here now, we created all these people, officer this, all these people with these titles and everything. Yeah, to have some type of law to regulate them, make sure they don't get out of control. And this is where you have public law. It governs public individuals, public officials, public servants. All right, we need something to govern them, so we have constitutional law that basically outlines the limitation of governmental powers.
In this episode of our Principles of the Constitution series, we plan to tackle the topic of legislative powers and limitations. Let's start with the branches of government. Do you know which branch the founders intended to give the most authority? Was it the legislative branch, the executive branch, or the judicial branch? The correct answer is the legislative branch. You see, the legislative branch, also known as Congress, was given much greater powers than even the executive and judicial branches combined. Article 1 of the Constitution describes powers of the legislature, including the making of laws and raising money through creating and collecting taxes, paying federal debts, providing for a united military, borrowing money, regulating commerce and immigration, declaring war, and overseeing the location of the federal government. It seems nearly endless, right? But despite those powers, the founders felt it was necessary to put rules and regulations on the legislature to keep from oppressing the states, the individuals, and their God-given rights. Today we often hear about the power of the president, also known as the executive branch. It is a common misconception that the president is supposed to make laws. That is the responsibility of Congress.
When you look at the whole Trump thing, you've obviously been someone who's been involved with politics, giving a shit about that, but has that fundamentally changed the way that you view politics? Do you think this is just more of the same? Is the situation more dire?
Politics is a distraction. Bottom line is, I don't care what president is in there, I'm getting mine. I'm not dependent on government to support me. But I do think it's entertaining. At the end of the day, Congress controls everything.
But you can look at Trump and say that that's entertaining, whereas a lot of people look at him and think of it as just genocide, terrible. It's the destruction of the community in a lot of ways.
He controls mentality and nothing else. So if some people are stupid and listen to that dumb shit, then that's on them. But physically, he can't really physically do too much. To get a law passed, there's a lot of other people that it's like a bill that turns into a law, and Congress gotta pass that shit. And if, let's say, the president overrides it, then Congress can override him.
Who could object to the government's acting through regulators and administrators to prevent railroads and utilities from price gouging and discrimination? Who could object to improving working conditions and ensuring safe drugs, meat, and food? Thus, at the beginning, through the efforts of the progressives, we saw the creation of the Federal Trade Commission and the Interstate Commerce Commission as our first major regulatory agencies. Interestingly, in the early years of their existence, they could not enforce their regulations. They had to go to the Article 3 courts to do that. Congress started passing these laws and delegating to agencies within the executive branch, and the agencies in turn were given the authority to decree regulations with the force of law. That means the administrative state was born. During the Franklin Roosevelt administration, as you all know, administrative agencies proliferated. And that may be why we call the presidential tenure in the modern era an administration. These were created as in response to the Great Depression, but also because these progressives within the Roosevelt administration believed that ordinary politics could not solve the problems of government, and besides that, they didn't want the people to be bothered with too much. So we had the alphabet agency era, the FPC, the SEC, the CAB, the NLRB, the FCC, along with the FTC and the ICC and others, began regulating major sectors of the American economy.
We have administrative law that governs administrative agencies, all right? The alphabet boards, FBI, CIA, IRS. You ever wonder why it always comes in threes? You know, but this is, and each police agency is called an agency. These are administrative agencies. All right, and of course, international law and criminal law. Now, this criminal law is a particular thing because they got in your mind, they're thinking about crimes and so forth, which is really not applicable because the Constitution of the United States only grants these people two jurisdictions, and one is under common law and one is under an admiralty, a colorable admiralty law and a condition of contract. When you're in a courtroom, you need to make sure the judge makes that distinction on the record. All right. Now, we're not too concerned with this over here. You know, what you want to do is you want to know under which side that you're operating on. But before I get in that, let's talk about private law. Now, private law, every private individual has, the Constitution protects us, has the right to contract unlimited. Contract law, that's on the private side. You have tort law, of course, where you can sue someone if they injure you. That's what tort means, an injury. And you have a status law. A lot of people don't realize, they think they don't know that you have a status. You know, everybody's not the same. You know, you have people who have diplomatic immunity and so forth. You know, these are consuls, different people like that. There are people who have different statuses. You have a status and you need to find out what it is. Most of you have the status of U.S. citizens, all right? You may want to investigate U.S. national, okay? And then you have property law. Now, property law is not, before you get that in your mind, get real estate out of your mind. Even though real estate does come under this umbrella, that's not just talking about that. It's talking about, you know, you have intellectual property, which would include your social security number. Your name is your property. Your body is your property, all right? So these laws are on the private side, okay? Now, how did these people over here circumvent, because they say none of this was applicable to you if you were a private individual. None of this is applicable to you. They can't apply this to you if you're over here, because it doesn't govern you, because you're a private person, or a private individual, not person, private individual. It's not applicable to you. It doesn't apply to you. This is for them. All right? People walking around saying, well, I have constitutional rights. You know, the Constitution doesn't have anything to do with you. The Constitution has something to do with them. That's what we wrote for them, to tell them how far they can go.